Starship Vigilant, a Star Trek Adventures campaign.
Hello everyone, this is Starship Vigilant session number 59. Today we're playing Bacchus Irresistible Call Part 2. Today's date is 26th of July 2023. So we have, in our game today, we have Karen, who is playing Captain Carol Moore. We have Sarah Jane, who's playing Commander Voldemort Reiter, who is the first officer and helmsman. We have Kevin, who's playing Lieutenant Commander Verrett, who's the chief engineer. And then we have Mike, who's playing Rafael Huerta, who is the chief of security. Unfortunately, Alex can't be with us today. He had been playing Lieutenant Commander Kamal Jitan, who is the chief medical officer. As per last session, obviously, things have changed slightly. So we are currently... our adventure is currently taking place in the year 2269, and in a change to our normal format, you are all playing the command crew of the USS Lexington, which is a Constitution class starship, and as I say, you are playing the command crew of the Lexington. So last time, the Lexington had been sent to the Bacchus star system to track down two Starfleet officers who had allegedly stolen a shuttlecraft, which had resulted in the deaths of two Starfleet personnel. Additionally, the orders to the Lexington were to investigate the reports of a Klingon vessel sighted in the area, and also that strange signals had been emanating from the Bacchus system for the last few weeks. So for all of these reasons, the Lexington has been dispatched to the Bacchus star system. Hello?
Yeah, that's all right.
Sorry, is that all good so far? Have I
okay?
nailed it up to that point? Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So as soon as the ship arrived in orbit around Bacchus 4, fourth planet in the system, you were attacked by an energy beam. An orange energy beam from the surface of the planet, which had begun to drain your systems, and the ship was in immediate danger of being pulled to the surface. And you'd all managed to scramble and react well enough to get things stabilized, and had realized that the surface of the planet was covered in these huge monolithic structures, and that the beam was emanating from one of those. And as soon as you'd managed to get the ship stabilized, or at least, you'd settle things down a little bit, although the ship was still being pounded by the energy beam. You and the command crew had all been transported down to the surface without your consent, and basically carrying whatever you had on you, which I think kind of amounted to communicators, and I think Commander Jitan we decided had a medical kit. I think Commander Huerta had a FASA 1, and I think you had a tricorder. I think chief engineer had a engineering tricorder, and so on. That was the only weapon you had, was the phaser. And when you arrived on the surface, you were in the close proximity to one of these huge monolithic structures, and in the distance you saw another one of these huge artifacts from which the energy beam seemed to be emanating. So you basically walked to that structure, and as you arrived at the structure, you first of all found a Klingon survival kit, which provided you with an additional weapon in the form of a Klingon disruptor, as well as some basic survival items. And once you arrived there, you'd found a group of assorted beings who all seemed to be in a strange state of kind of confusion / ambivalence. And included in that group, you had Lieutenant Janna Fry, who was one of the Starfleet personnel that you were there to apprehend, along with her compatriot Ensign Camilla Shara. And in addition to those two, you also had a Vulcan scientist called Barine, a male Vulcan. You had two Trill called Kaj and Mahir, a Romulan senator, or an ex-senator, Romulan called Zeton, and 2 Klingons, Delok and Brutog. I don't think you got the names off them last time. It's not that important, but this group, if you remember, were kind of milling around outside this structure, and they were kind of fascinated by the orange energy beam, but they seemed strangely passive. And if you remember, if you questioned them, they weren't really that responsive to questioning. They seemed almost tranquilized or hypnotized, or however you want to phrase it. And one of them, if you remember again, one of them had you'd activated some sort of access device. A blue beam had shot out from the this object, and when one of these people stood in the beam, a hidden doorway opened, revealing a passageway leading into the monolith, for the want of a better word. And at the same time, you had another orange energy beam had emanated from the artifact, shooting up into space, and almost immediately after that, a group of 3 Klingons appeared in front of you. They seem to have been transported down to the surface in the same way as you had. Again, they weren't carrying any energy weapons, but they were carrying Klingon knives and so on. And if you remember, they basically kind of shouted at you when they'd appeared, and said, "What have you done to our ship? And why have you attacked us? Why have you brought us here?" And that's kind of where we left it, as I recall. Does that seem to match with everybody's experience?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Okay, so the situation is you're standing on this planet's surface. Again, you're right next to this huge, this 300 meter per side pentagonal artifact, which reaches right up into the sky. And obviously the technology involved in creating such artifacts, especially on such a scale and in such number, seems to be certainly way ahead of anything that the Federation is capable of. And again, as these Klingons arrive, so they're looking at you quite hostilely. So over to you as to how you'd like to handle them. So they're advancing towards you. Again, 2 of them have pulled out their duck targs, which are the Klingon knives.
Right.
And
Steve, I'll pull my phaser and warn them to stand back.
Okay.
We have a phaser and we have a disruptor, don't we? Who had the disruptor in the end?
I can't remember. It's up to you guys. I'm quite happy. I think one of you just picked it up. So yeah, whoever. I mean, I guess let's say the captain's got it. I think it seems likely that the captain would probably have kept control of that. So yeah, you've got this Klingon disruptor, tucked into your belt. Although you technically don't have a belt, I guess you got Velcro. They always had Star Trek Velcro, didn't they? So, so your disruptor. The disruptor is basically stuck to your what was it called, Mike? Magnetomic adhesion strip. There you go. I remember that. That's a throwback.
Oh, wow.
Another name for Velcro, basically.
You scout more.
Yeah. So I really, really do. Yeah. So you've got the as I say. So you've got this disruptor, and these 3 Klingons are advancing towards you. Again, at least one of them speaks English or standard. And as I say, they're looking. You get the sense they're probably equally frightened as well as belligerent, because again, like I say, they've obviously been whisked off the bridge of their vessel in the same way that you were.
Do they react to me?
Not well. They pause because obviously you are, as you say, you are brandishing a weapon, but they still seem pretty unhappy, and they're still demanding answers. So. If you bear with me a moment, I'll tell you what I'm going to do, actually. I'm going to drag you over to another map screen, so just bear with me for a second. Not exactly as fully formed as I would have liked it, but so if we look here, I'm going to just move. So here's your group. So Mike, or Kevin, do you want to see if you can move your token? I don't know whether you can move it or not. I'm hoping you can, but if you can't, I'll move it.
That one.
It's the Andorian. It's this one.
No, I can't move it.
Okay. Okay. It's not important.
I can't move mine either. Just so you know.
That's fine. So let's assume I'm going to put these guys up here. So those are the two Federation. Oh, Mike, by the way, those are the tokens made with that new token maker on the Modiphius site, and the Klingons as well. These guys are just going to represent the other group. Stick them up there. Just bear with me. So if we assume Captain Moore's here.
Somebody seems to have cloned me.
I beg your pardon? Oh, yeah. Good point.
Somebody seems to have been cloned.
There is another.
I'm going to assume that you go there.
And I'll put my clone down. Put my clone on the backside, lower part.
Bear with. And this is the science officer, because I think we're going to just... I can't remember. Can you remember last time? Did we say that I think we said that the science officer had beamed down with you, did we? Anyone remember?
Yeah, no.
So let's just get rid of her then. For the sake of argument.
We had an even number of people, didn't we? So whether that was, it must be four of us.
I think she was there, but I think again, for the sake of argument, and if I just have a little look here, so who are we missing? So we've got Captain. It's Voldemar, isn't it? So we'll put him on there. We'll get rid of
Voldemort.
Voldemar. I know what you're thinking.
Voldemar. I can't actually see anything at the moment. I've managed to get my carry open and I can't close it.
Accio phasers.
If you look on the, I think I take it. Can the rest of you see that map? If you got it up?
Yeah.
You see it?
Yeah.
Okay. So as you can see, but let's so basically up at the top edge of the page is going to be where the artifact is. These are your characters clustered. So I'm assuming that Huerta will take the lead as you've got your brandishing the phaser. Again, these three Klingons have appeared.
As a good security officer, I will throw myself in front of the enemy of Klingon.
Totally understandable. I'm also just going to bring up my little. Just bear with me one
Howard,
second.
I'll stand behind him.
Okay, so now the way that this system works. Now, again, I'm not going to make any prejudgment here about what we're doing. As I said last time, we're using the FASA system mainly because I like to make things hard for myself. The FASA system has an action type. You use action points. You have an action point economy. So when you're doing anything in a combat situation, everything has a point cost. And if you look at your character sheet, then at the top right of your sheet, you have got what's called an AP total, which is, so Kevin's got 10. Sarah Jane's got 10. Carol Moore's got 9. Huerta's got 11. And those points are basically what you've got to spend on doing stuff. And if I bring up the AP table and I'll show it to all of you. So the AP table is essentially, as it says, it's a list of. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's literally is a list of things you can do, and everything you do has a point cost. So literally, moving a square costs you a point. Using drawing a weapon, aiming a weapon has point cost, and so on. And the point is, when it's your turn to act, you can do whatever you can do up to the point cost that is available to you, and that's what you do. And you have that every turn. You have those points, and then the next turn they refresh. And it is quite an old school thing, but it works pretty well. So I guess really the situation at the moment, you're in a bit of a face off here. So what I think we'll do is we will first of all see whether Huerta is able to kind of intimidate them, or at least convince them to think twice, if that makes sense. So they're coming towards you. They're obviously not very happy, and they are advancing on you. As I say, they've got knives drawn. They don't appear to have any energy weapons that you can see. Mike, you obviously your eyes have glanced to their belts, and that they've obviously been snatched off their ship in the same way that you were.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to get you. What we're going to do is we are going to make a. I think we are going to get you to. Let's see. I guess really this is a charisma task, right? You're trying to use your force of personality to stand them down.
I'm a security guard.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get you to. So those you've got a charisma of 57.
Yeah.
And these guys have got a matching. They also have a charisma score. So I'm going to get you to make a roll, and I'm going to roll for the Klingon who's in charge, and we'll see how we get on. So if you want to just use the dice roller, so remember it's D100, so you just use the dice roller. Just roll me a D100 and tell me how you get on.
Yeah. Here we go.
So you scored a 48. So that is below your charisma score. So that means you succeeded. So I'm going to then roll for them as well. And first of all, we see whether he succeeds. And okay. So I can tell you that the Klingon the Klingon who seems to be in charge. He's wearing the insignia of a sergeant in the Klingon military, and this is he is not that guy. He is this guy. Doesn't really matter, but he's this guy here. Oh, hello, this guy here.
Mm-hmm.
And you sort of stand your ground, and as I say, you've got your phaser out, and he stops advancing. Basically, he failed his charisma roll. So you
basically, I just say, do yourself a favour, lad. Stop there, and let's talk about it. You know what I mean?
Okay, so
it's sort of like
So for the moment, they have they've stood down, or they've at least stopped, and he still gathers his courage and is. I demand that you explain what is happening here. How dare you kidnap members of the Imperial Klingon Navy?
Then we have both been kidnapped. We did not kidnap you. If you look around, you'll see other people. We didn't do it. We've all been kidnapped.
Okay, so they obviously spot the other group. So this is the other group up here. Now, those of you who were not engaged in this direct conflict with the Klingons, or at least this face-to-face with the Klingons, you notice that these guys, this group, seem really keen to get inside of this artifact. In fact, you see that they're all kind of, at the moment, they're all kind of clustered around the entrance, and it's almost like they're trying to get the courage up to go further. But as you're watching, the Romulan, who you've established her name is Zeton, and I don't have a Romulan token, but it's not really that important. But you notice that she seems to find her courage, and she kind of heads into the passageway, and the others then follow. So what would you like to do?
What are we going to do?
Well, I think maybe I know working with the Klingons isn't something that's normally done, but we can say we're all in the same boat, and we need to figure a way off of this planet and gain control of our ships again. Maybe for the meantime, we call a truce and try and figure this out together. I'm
game for that.
What do the others think?
So Sergeant Qatar, for tis he slowly puts his weapon away, and his other two subordinates. The other two seem to be lowly. They basically have the rank of Beck, which basically is warrior. So they're like enlisted personnel, and they follow his lead. So they kind of put their weapons away, and he says, "Very well, we will cooperate for now until we find a way off this planet." And he also calls out to the two, because again, this group, again, it's not representative, but if you remember, it does include 2 Klingons, and you assume that these 3 new arrivals are from the Klingon ship that has presumably been dispatched here to retrieve its own personnel in much the same way that you have as well.
Yep.
And he sort of calls out to the Klingon in Klingon. I'm just trying to see whether any of you actually speak. I'm sure one of you.
Let's see whether it's me.
Oh yes, Huerta. Okay, Huerta, you actually speak Klingon.
Actually, in that case, I would have when I spoke to the Klingon, if I'd known.
Oh, as does the science officer. But yeah, you speak Klingon.
If I'd realised that, then I would have. When I spoke to the Klingons earlier, I would have spoke to them in Klingonese.
That's fine. You don't need to make. I'm not going to get you to make a roll for it anyway, because again, if you remember the way that the FASA system works, anything if you've got between like sort of, I think it's between like 10 and 40%, it's considered that you have a kind of workman, like you have a basic proficiency. So unless you're doing something which is, unless you were trying to sort of, recite the works of Shakespeare from memory, but for normal conversational.
In its original Klingon.
In its original Klingon, exactly. You don't need to make a roll just to understand what they're saying. So he calls out to one of these guys, and he's like, we did have the guy's name, didn't we? And he says something. He says, "Deloc, what are you doing? Report." And you basically, these guys just completely ignore him, as you've encountered. They're kind of transfixed / so obsessed with this situation and this obelisk / monolith that they're not really paying any attention. And the Klingons sort of walk into the passageway as if they hadn't heard him, even though they quite clearly did. And he looks quite put out by this again. But reluctantly, as I say, they agree to cooperate, and he will retrofit that. So you said that you spoke to him in Klingon originally. Yes. So again, he
because it's
that obviously scores some points with him that you understand Klingon. So
exactly.
Cool. All right. So
Mike or Steve, either of you, what are relations between the Klingons and the Romulans like at this point in time?
Pretty bad.
Yeah, I don't mean to.
Not bad.
No, that's a fair question actually.
Not bad enough that they didn't sign a treaty.
Yeah, so there is a treaty in place at this point, certainly in the FASA game, and again, we are mixing up the canon a little bit. But basically, the Klingons and the Romulans are at least cooperating with each other.
Can I mention, Steve? Think Russia and China during the Cold War.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, the enemy of my enemy, is my friend. So
my enemy.
The Klingons and the Romulans have signed a treaty. They have a technology exchange, which has resulted in the Romulan Star Empire have actually started using Klingon D7 battle cruisers in their fleet. In fact, in Star Trek Series 3, there is an episode. It's the Enterprise incident, I believe. It's the one where they try and steal the cloaking device. And basically, the Romulans are using Klingon battlecruiser hulls, albeit retrofitted with cloaking devices and so on. And similarly, this is the period during which the Klingons obtain the cloaking device from the Romulans, which is used in the Bird of Prey and most of the other Klingon ships. Right. So yes, there is sort of cordial. Having said that, I think it's fair to say that they still dislike each other. But they have realised that there is because the Federation is, basically is the technological superpower. So the Federation has better technology. So they have, as Mike says, they have agreed to cooperate and to share technology because it benefits them both against a common threat.
Basically, as I say, the reason they made the deal is the Klingons wanted the cloaking device.
Yeah, basically.
So
they gave them a load of old D7 holes in exchange for them.
Yeah, but also the Romulans benefited because they're the D7s are still better than the average than the Warbird, which is the sort of standard Romulan ship at this point. So yes, there is no overt hostility, but again, I don't think they like each other particularly, but they're certainly cooperating.
Okay.
And in terms of relations between the Federation and the Klingons, I mean, we are in the time of the Organian treaty. So again, if you've seen the original series episode called Errand of Mercy, this is basically where the Klingons and the Federation come to blows over the planet of Organia, and it is revealed at the end that the Organians are in fact a highly advanced energy-based species who essentially force the Klingons and the Federation to come to a truce. And in fact, it's literally impossible for the Klingons and for the Federation to trade blows. That the neutral zone is established at this point.
Hence the Organian Peace Treaty.
Yeah, exactly. So again, relations are not, again, they're not cordial because the Klingons don't like us and we don't particularly like them. But again, it's been forced upon us. So all three parties are kind of at a bit of an impasse at the moment.
Okay, cool. Okay. Do we, as a group, do we suspect then we may be visited by more Romulans to retrieve the Romulans that are here? It's a possibility, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
I'd suggest they're not the best of species, so it's probably best to keep a watchful eye out on them. Maybe you could mention to the Klingons that might be worth doing as well.
Yeah,
Yep.
possibly.
Yeah.
That's why I was interested in the relations between them, because the Klingons might, if we told them, oh, Romulans might arrive, they might think, rather the Romulans than the Federation. And
But you could pitch it with, because of where we are and what's happening, anyone could turn up and then list off, 4 or 5 really passive species, and then go, and Romulans, and drop that in at the end, and that'd be the talking point, not the 4 or 5 previous races you've mentioned who are pacifists, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Build them up to it and then go, Romulans.
So your immediate concern is the fact that these guys, the other group, have now got access to this monolith.
Yeah.
And they have basically gone into this passageway. Do you want to follow them, or do you want to send some of your party to follow them?
I'd like to
I think there's more answers in there than there are out here, right?
Beg your pardon?
We should go. I think there's more answers in there than there are out here. I think.
Right,
I think we should go inside.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Maybe keep someone as watch outside.
Yeah, that's. I think. Well, why don't we get the science officer and the medical officer to stay outside for now?
Yeah.
Purely because they're not here, so they're not appearing in this episode. So we'll say that they you detail them to just keep a watch outside. Obviously, I think we established last time that the communicators were working on the planet, didn't we?
That's right. Yep.
So you can use the communicators between yourselves. You basically order them to just keep an eye on the passageway, on the outside, and you follow them in. Right. Okay. So as you enter this monolith, you find an interior passageway. And as you go in, you can see that it's lit by the same glowing runes on the walls and ceiling that you saw on the outside of the building. And the corridor seems to be cutting in towards the centre of this huge tower. Bear in mind, as we said, the passageway is about the tower is about 300 meters on a side. And as you're looking ahead, the passage continues ahead, and you can see the group of the other, I don't know, what do we call them? The others. We'll call them the others just because they're the other group of people are ahead of you. And they seem to have gotten over their hesitance because, again, as I said, when you were talking to the Klingons, these guys seemed pretty reluctant to enter the building, but now they seem to have gotten over it. And they're now heading down with purpose. And you see that there's a turn up ahead. And basically, as you see that the Romulan Zeton is still in front. If you remember, she was the first one to enter the passageway. And as she turns the corner, you suddenly see a bright flash of light and hear a scream. Huerta, your security instincts kick into play, and you kind of rush ahead and push your way past the milling. Okay. These other people, they're sort of milling around. They're not quite sure what to do. And as you turn around, you see that Zeton she's like enveloped in an energy beam, and her mouth is kind of open in a scream. And then for a second, you see the faint glowing outline of her skeleton, and then she just evaporates into smoke. And obviously you've encountered some form of defense mechanism. And the unfortunate Romulan is the first victim, and certainly she's been disintegrated as far as you can tell. It certainly doesn't look like it was some sort of teleport beam.
Can I see where the beam come from?
It obviously came from a hidden opening somewhere in the wall, or rather the ceiling. Presumably, she may have touched some sort of pressure plate or something, and there's a proximity sensor. Now, as you're kind of taking this in, the Vulcan Barine starts to push past you. He seems so enraptured now by his purpose that he seems almost determined to walk into the same trap. Yeah. So he's trying to push past you.
Right. I'll stop him.
Okay. So how are you going to do that?
Kirk chop to the neck.
Hey, yeah, let's do it. Okay. Kirk chops to the neck. Perfect. Right. Okay, so what you're going to do is first of all, we're going to have to rip your shirt.
No.
Secondly, well, you get a 10-point bonus if you rip your shirt first. You see, that's how Kirk does it.
Yeah, but somebody always rips his shirt. Doesn't do it himself.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh,
okay,
I'll rip your shirt then.
Yeah, we'll all rip your shirt.
Somebody will just rip your shirt. Any volunteers? Yeah, go on then. Okay, so Mike, you're going to do a to hit modern roll.
Yes.
Because you're doing hand to hand. So your to hit modern is, I believe, 63.
I roll D100, yeah.
So you roll a D100. Bear with me 1 second. I'm just going to have a little look at the old, double checking the combat to make sure there's nothing special we need to worry about if you're doing this. Because as I say, there's lots of options here. I'm not going to use APs because it's not really relevant. Right. Okay. So you're just going to make a straight roll. There's no. Basically, you do have some. I'm going to give you a modifier here because he's trying to push past you, and he's not really paying you that much attention.
Yeah.
Because, as I say, all he's interested in is he's kind of pushing his, he's kind of elbowing his way past you. So I'm going to give you a. Let's say I'm going to give you a 20 points bonus. So if you just want to roll your...
Okay, ignore all my previous rolls. It was just me fiddling around. Okay.
So,
right, this is the one that counts.
Yeah,
5.
go on. You got a 5. Oh, perfect. Okay. Right, so you basically, you kind of struggle with him slightly, and in the process, your shirt gets ripped. Of course it does.
Isn't that a success if you...
It doesn't really matter for the purposes of this.
Okay.
The point is you've hit him.
Yeah.
So you, as I say, you're struggling with him. He's trying to push past you, and you, as I say, in the struggle, he sort of clutches past you and rips your shirt, so your tunic sort of rips slightly at the shoulder, and you basically deliver a karate chop to the back of his neck, and he drops to the ground stunned. You've not done him any permanent damage, but you've kind of, you've rung his bell, and he drops to the ground. And the other group at this point stop their advance because again they're kind of easily led apparently. So it's enough to see you having dropped him to the ground. They kind of, at least certainly they hesitate. Now you can presumably you might be worth you pulling your phaser out and waving a phaser at them to keep them from pushing ahead, because you get the impression that they're kind of, they're kind of short-circuited a little bit here, but they are still desperately keen to try and get ahead. But they do hold back again, given that you've just dropped their colleague to the ground, and again you're now sort of waving a phaser at them to tell them to keep back.
We don't do wide-angle stun, do we?
Yes, we do. We certainly do.
Not
in
on
this
a phaser
game.
1 though. Is it? It'll be on a phaser.
Phaser 1 can do wide angle stun. I'm just having a look. Bear with. Good old wide angle stun.
Yeah,
we love
problem solver supreme.
It's a problem solving machine. I'm just going to try and find I can't find it. That's really irritating. Where's the damage table gone? Here was me last week going on about how good the rule book is, and now the one thing I'm looking for
One drop.
Don't worry. I got it. Because it's in this book, and it is weapons table is right there. There we go. Okay, so so you're going to try and shoot them with wide angle stun. So yes, you do have wide angle stun. So yeah, do you want to do that? So
full power wide angle stun, take the whole bloody lot down.
Okay, so if you want to roll, give me a D100 roll again. So you're rolling against your this will be your marksmanship modern. There's no modifiers because I mean they're kind of easy targets really. They just sort of stand.
It's wide angle stun.
Yep.
3.
There you go. Perfect. Okay. So the rest of you then, you've obviously, because Huerta's obviously gone dashing past you. You see him tussle with this the Vulcan, and he then pulls out his phaser 1, which is the little keychain phaser as they call them, the little black phaser. And you see him adjust the setting quickly on his weapon, and he fires, and there's a blue beam envelops all of the other members of the group, and they all drop to the ground stunned. Those of you in the rest of you, as you're bringing up the rear, you kind of there's a slight sort of tingle in the air from the residual electricity from the weapon, but that has effectively this will put them out of action for some time. And it's a good call because they were obviously still trying to get ahead. So this means you can obviously now control things a little bit easier because they're not going to be pushing to get past you. I think that's perfectly legit. And obviously it was set on stun. So it's all good. So what would you like to do? So you've got a bit of a breather here. As I say, you've stopped them in their tracks, but you know that there is essentially a booby trap, which is kind of blocking your way. Now I'm going to give you a minute. I'm just going to just step away for a second. So if you guys want to have a quick chat, and I'll be right back.
Did the Klingons follow us in?
It wasn't stated, but I assumed they did.
Yeah, because they would probably be in that group that were just stunned, to be honest with you, because they all seem to be trying to get it. Steve said they were all trying to get ahead of us. The group was trying to get ahead of us. I'm assuming the Klingons were in there as well. So,
oh, okay.
So
I assumed it was just the people that were transfixed.
Yeah, I thought when he said the group, he meant the those that were there before us.
Fair enough.
We'll need clarification.
Did anybody bring a trick? Was anybody lucky enough to get a tricorder?
I thought we had a medical one. I actually thought I had one.
We did, but medical person's outside.
But the medical tricorder only really does medical stuff, doesn't it? It's not.
I think that
I'm
being totally meta with this at the moment. I think the best way to where we're going at the moment is basically a dungeon crawl. Treat it as if we're dungeon delving. So assume the whole thing's going to be trapped. So assume traps and monsters. And everything.
No one's got dark vision.
No. Anyway, I know it's not sort of like the Star Trek thing, but I think that's where we are. But...
Yeah, possibly. Yeah. Well, were there any route options, or is this just one corridor we're in?
As far as I know, it looks like
just one corridor, I think.
So yeah, we'll have to sort of
get into party order.
What's it called? Yeah. What's it called when you remove the trap? Get rid of the trap. Deboobify.
I don't actually remember what it's called. Yeah, I know what you're saying, but yeah.
I like that though.
Disarm.
Yeah.
There we go.
What are we doing
disarm
then?
the Klingons. We're going to cut their arms off.
There was a slight question as to where the Klingons, the new Klingons, whereabouts they are.
Okay, so I'm going to assume if we let's make a little marching order here because it's again, and bearing in mind these are not all of the.
I refer you to my previous comment.
These are not all of the other guys, but I'll just use them as a representation of the group. So we've got Huerta is at the front. Huerta is here because you've sort of put yourself in front of them and you've stunned them. Okay, so you sort of pushed your way through this group. So if we're assuming this is where the passageway is heading, you're heading in that direction, okay? So I'm going to assume, Captain, so we're going to put the rest of you kind of clustered around here. So you're bringing up, you've come up the corridor, and as I say, Huerta's gone running ahead. Oh, he's not there, is he? He's outside. And the Klingons, I'm going to just assume they're sort of behind you. Again, these are junior, although they bear scars of battle that you noticed last time. They seem at the moment content to follow your lead. So that's really, you can sort of, at the moment you can direct them and they will kind of follow your lead until it suits them not to, if that makes sense.
Right. So I'm going to start looking around to try and figure out. I mean, I'm assuming there's a pile of dust or whatever it is on the floor. And this.
There's not even a pile of dust. There's a sort of a vague outline of There's probably, it was like a cube. Yeah. Now that's a whole other thing, isn't it? Because that was another episode where everyone got turned into little cubes. No, she's just been vaporized, so there's maybe a faint carbon residue on the floor.
There is
but other than
scorch
that,
marks or something. Anyway, whatever.
I mean, so there's a couple of things you can do here. So first thing is, obviously, our chief engineer's got his engineering tricorder, so it's certainly conceivable that you could use a tricorder to scan for an energy source. Failing that, you could probably use security procedures to make an educated guess as to where the weapon is likely to be hidden.
I was going to throw a boot down the corridor.
Yeah, well, there is that. That's actually not a bad suggestion. You could also literally just throw something down the corridor and see if it, is it motion sensor? Is it pressure set? You just don't know. I mean, again, it could be a pressure plate.
One of the Klingons, a boot.
Just throw one of the Klingons.
The medical tricorder can't project a hologram of a doctor, can it? That's too early. Not
at this point. But then you've got an engineering tricorder, so you can certainly scan for energy sources. That's what it does really. So
I will do that.
I'll probably make a scan first of all. So you don't need to make a roll for that because again, you're not doing anything. You're just using the tricorder for its base function.
Yeah.
So you kind of move ahead, and obviously very cautiously. You don't move into the bit of the corridor where the Romulan was located when she got zapped. Okay, so you basically scan it, and it takes you a minute as you scan around, and sure enough, you can pick up power conduits based in the wall, and you can basically see where the emitter is. So there is a hidden emitter in the ceiling. Again, your tricorder is able to literally see the power flow running through the walls, and they kind of become centered at a point in the ceiling, which again you assume is where the emitter is based. So it looks to you as if it's some sort of motion sensor. There doesn't seem to be any sort of pressure plate. So it appears that there is a scanner built into the emitter which detects moving up the corridor.
Okay.
Yeah.
You said there's an emitter, yeah?
In our medical kit.
Beg your pardon? Medical kit.
In our medical kit, do we have anything sticky?
Blasters.
Yeah, you probably do. Yeah, you have what do you call it? Oh God, what do they call it? Mike, help me out. What do they call the synthetic skin? Like they have like a a hypo which has got like so for burns and so on, it literally sprays.
Would it be possible to get that onto the emitter so that it can't see us move?
I don't know whether you'd be able to reach it because it's quite a way down the corridor. I'll tell you what you could probably do. The first thing to try is probably just to shoot it, honestly.
Yeah, I was going to suggest that if we can see it, we can shoot it.
Yeah, you certainly.
If it bleeds, you can kill it.
Yeah, exactly. You always get bonus points for an Arnold voice. Just as a side note, by the way, we found out today that apparently Arnold's doing a personal appearance at the Albert Hall in October. So he's doing like a show at the Albert Hall because he's promoting a book or something. But I've told my colleague about it today. He nearly passed out with excitement.
I wanted him to do a one-man show Shakespeare. That would have been brilliant.
That would be And I would so be there for that. Yeah, but okay, so
Or
yeah,
not
I mean,
to be.
that is the question, Ollie.
To be back or not to be back.
I hear you want to be a farmer. Here's a couple of acres. One of my favourites. Okay, so yes, you can basically Varette. We'll go with Varette. Varette can basically paint you a target. You can sort of, you can literally just say, I'm going to see who's the best shot out of all of you. That's probably the good place to start. I'm guessing it's probably Huerta, but I could be wrong. So Huerta, your shooting is 57, and the Valdemar has got 58. So Reiter, you've actually Valdemar Reiter. Oh no, actually, Valdemar Reiter's actually got a better. It's a better shot than only by 1 point. So
I was reaching for either sticky stuff or a boot.
So what I would recommend is you probably want to use the Klingon Disruptor, because the Klingon Disruptor's got more oomph behind it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess if the captain hands you the Disruptor and you kind of feel the weight of it and aim, and as I say, the chief engineer tells you exactly where to shoot. So what you're going to have to do is you're just going to have to make a shooting roll. So that's just a D100. Now I'm going to take off 10 points because you need to, it's a pinpoint target, so you're aiming for a particular point.
Okay.
So obviously roll low if you can. Just roll the D100 and see how you get on. Hey,
37.
perfect. Okay, so you would have been safe under 47, so you hit it with 37. And you so you basically take a moment to aim, and you pull the trigger and you fire the beam, and the disruptor beam hits it square on, and there's quite a big explosion. I mean, not big enough to take out the corridor, but there's a, and Varette is able to scan. On your tricorder, Varette, you can see that the device has been rendered inoperative. It's been destroyed. Now, obviously, you might want to maybe again go back to your original plan and just throw something down the corridor to make sure that you still get zapped from somewhere else.
Yeah, do two things: throw something down the corridor, but also rescan, adding an extra few feet to the scan to see if there's a secondary weapon that is once the primary's gone, a secondary might kick in.
That's perfectly sensible. I'll allow you to do that. So you run your tricorder, and I mean, basically, you can pick up a piece of, because there's pieces of rock have been thrown down the corridor because of this explosion.
Well, I
so
figure the arm of that dead Klingon is just throw it down the corridor.
You could do that. You pick up a piece of rock and you just toss it down the corridor, and nothing happens. It bounces. There's no there's no evidence of any other weapon, and you proceed cautiously.
We could say to the Klingons, being clearly the bravest of all races, they could lead the way.
We'll send them down first. Yeah, you could do that. Yeah, you could. I mean, they'll probably buy that as well. They probably. You don't even need to make a charisma roll to convince them, because they're. To be honest, they're feeling a little bit.
Have you got one of these tricorders? Oh.
Well, exactly. Yes, exactly. I mean, as we said, Klingon technology is functional, but it's primitive. And certainly so if you give them the option to proceed ahead and say, well, if you'd like to, we'll give you the honor. That's a good word to use.
Oh yes.
We'll give you the honor of proceeding. Then they will proceed without too much hesitation. And sure enough, they managed to proceed ahead, and nothing. They don't get zapped. So you presume that you've removed the defense mechanism.
Steve.
So
first off, I think what you were looking for, medical equipment, it was either a protoplaser, whatever that is, or a dermal regenerator.
I was thinking of a dermal regenerator, but that doesn't really have a sticky residue, does it? It just uses like science to fix
I think, as I say, there is, whatever. Yeah. There's also the protoplaser, which is sort of like a. There's a word salad to me, but there you go. Anyway.
Okay. Well, again, you've managed to zap it, so it's all good. So the Klingons have proceeded ahead, and they come to another opening, and they kind of stop dead, and they say, "Human, you should come and see this." And you sort of step over the unconscious other crewmen and other the Vulcans and the Trill and so on. And as you go ahead, and where the Klingons have stopped, there's a portal that's moving into a bigger room beyond. And this room is quite impressive. This room it's a large, again, it's pentagonal. It obviously doesn't match the dimensions of the outer walls, because as I said, these walls are like 300 meters long, but this room is still 20 to 30 meters on a side. And you can see all around the room is what appears to be displays and control consoles. This definitely seems to be a control room of some sort. As you cautiously enter the room, and again, Verret is scanning with his tricorder, but Verret, you can see that there's no power sources. There is this sort of background power source which is running through the walls. We've already established this blue energy conduits that are running through everything. So there is a kind of background energy, but there doesn't seem to be anything to indicate that the room is active. There's certainly no hidden defensive mechanisms that you can detect. And you can see that there's a thick layer of dust across everything in this room. And certainly you would estimate no one's been here for, certainly probably hundreds of years, if not longer. And again, on the floor, you can see again, the floor is covered in dust. There's no footprints, except for the footprints that you're making as you enter. And the Klingons sort of mill about in the room. This is a bit outside of their experience. You assume these guys are not scientists. These are probably all just warriors, so they're soldiers, basically. But certainly the room is very impressive. The ceiling is very high. And again, there are what look like displays mounted up, high on the walls. And it certainly seems to be quite an impressive room. You can't see it. You can't see the full extent of it because the light is low level. So there is emergency light, if you like, what you would call emergency lighting, but it's very dim. And again, you presumably just sort of spread out and have a look around. Is that
that plan?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Cautiously.
Okay, fine. So you spend a few minutes kind of looking around, and again, all around the room there are control panels, or what look like control panels to your eyes. You can tell because they've got bulbs in them and clicky buttons. But you've looked around, and again, you've cautiously, Verret, the engineers, you probably had a little prod at a couple of buttons to see if there's any activity, if there's any life. But again, your tricorder's just not really showing you anything.
No.
So as you are looking around, you are suddenly aware that the others have regained consciousness. Now, this is surprising to our security officer because, normally the stun would probably keep them out for at least half an hour, because wide-angle stun is less potent than the normal stun setting because it's obviously diffused, but they seem to have been agitated and have got back up, and they now come into this room and they now start to move around. They don't even acknowledge the fact that you shot them. They just, now they're in this room. They start running around and they're kind of touching panels and, seemingly randomly. You just see them, moving, touching panels, touching another panel, waving their arms in the air. And they seem to be trying to get this thing to activate, but they don't seem to be having much luck. So I don't know whether you want to just let them get on with it or whether you want to do anything to intercede.
Can we try and ask them, what are you doing?
Oh, we just, okay. So you speak to the nearest one. Let's say one of the Trill, she's nearest to you. There's two Trill, male and a female, and she goes, this just seems like the right thing to do. I don't really know, but I've just got this feeling this is what I should be doing. So I'm just going to keep doing it. And she just moves on to another panel and just keeps, literally, it looks like she's trying to activate controls, but the controls are dark. They don't seem to be doing anything. And you're seeing similar behavior from all the others as well. And if you question them, they're exactly the same. They're kind of, they're very laid back. This just seems to be what I should be doing at this point. I've just got this feeling this is what I need to do. Do you know what I mean? Hey, you could help me. Yeah, maybe you could try a few panels as well. Just try touching that one over there. they're very they seem completely oblivious to the fact that they just got shot, and they just carry on moving around the room, trying to obviously activate the control panels. The Klingons, again, as I said, they've kind of stuck together in the middle of the room, and they're just kind of looking around. They're not really sure what to do here. Again, their Klingon colleagues, the two who were brought along as part of the other group, they're doing exactly the same, moving around, touching control panels, just trying to get things to activate. Okay, so are you happy just to let them carry on, or do you wish to?
I think so. We'll definitely keep an eye on them.
Okay.
Yeah, it might be worth having somebody keep an eye on them just in case they do something that we don't like.
Okay. Sure. So you can yeah, exactly. You can all keep an eye on them. Really, they're just kind of, I said, they're just doing their thing. They're kind of moving around, touching stuff. And as you're watching them, you see that they seem to be becoming a little bit more frustrated. It's almost like they're kind of like convinced that this is what they should be doing and this should be working. And why is this not working? And they're getting a bit more forceful. They're kind of slapping panels a bit more aggressively. They seem to be, as I say, getting a bit more frustrated by the fact that nothing's working for them. All of a sudden, you hear almost sounds like a relay switching on. There's like a kind of a thunk in the background, and all of a sudden, all of the panels in the room light up. And in fact, the sudden change in light level is almost hard. It was almost hurting your eyes, because whereas you were in this kind of half light previously, all of these panels suddenly spring to life, and the control panels will light up. And in midair, there are numerous 3D displays appear. So some of the panels the monitors light up, and they're literally projecting 3D images into the room. And once you get over the sort of initial surprise, this reinforces the idea that this is some sort of a control room. It's obviously a control center for this, certainly for this building. And as you look around, there are a few things that spring out to you. So Captain Morth, you see there's a 3D representation of what you recognise as the Bacchus system. So it's obviously a tactical display. It's a computer representation of the Bacchus system.
Okay.
And you can see, as you watch, the object that represents Bacchus 4, which is the planet that you are on currently.
Yep.
On this computer simulation, it kind of a beam shoots out from the surface of it and seems to grab one of the moons of Bacchus 3, the next planet in the solar system. And this graphic represents that this moon is literally pulled out of Bacchus 3's orbit. And then there's a simulation of this moon being cut into segments, and then these segments then impact into the surface of the planet that you're on. This seems to be representing how the monolithic structures were put onto the surface. If you remember from last time, you'd theorize that the structures had to have been carved from like an asteroid or a moon or something, because they're just one piece of rock basically.
Yep.
And then meanwhile, Verret, you can see a 3D representation of what you recognize as the Milky Way galaxy. And on the galaxy, or throughout this map of the galaxy, which is like rotating in midair, you can see that there are a number of red highlighted lights sort of blinking. And you can, again, looking at it, you obviously, you realize vaguely where your position is. And you can see that one of those red lights appears to be on the Bacchus system. There's also a larger cluster of lights.
Is it possible to run that through the tricorder? And
certainly what you can do is you can scan. What I would suggest you can do is you can take a visual record of it. So you can basically video it with your tricorder.
Yeah.
So you basically hold your tricorder up, and it will record. Because yes, you probably can, but you'd have to do that on the ship, because again, you can get a rough perspective, because again, enough about the galaxy, that you recognise where you are vaguely in the galaxy. And you can see that
from a time perspective. So run it through a processional equation, algorithm, whatever, to see if that image is current or that image is of the past or what.
Okay. So you're recording this, and as you're watching it, it looks to you as if there is a large concentration of these red lights, seem to be in a region of the beta quadrant, which, as far as you know, has not been explored. And spoiler alert, that's basically the Shackleton Expanse.
Yeah.
So what will become the Shackleton Expanse, but at this point, the Shackleton Expanse has not been heavily explored, and so this seems to be giving you locations of interest, or again, similar to this planet, which, as I say, is indicated on the map. So yes, you take a holographic record of it, and as you say, yes, you can run it through any analysis you want to later on once you're back on the ship.
Right.
Huerta, you see also a display which indicates that basically is a representation of the energy beams that are holding the Lexington and also the bird of prey. So you can see like a real-time, again, it's like a tactical display. So there's like a globe at the center of this display, and there are these two orange beams, and you can see that there's two points of light in orbit of the planet, which you assume one is the Lexington.
Is it just a display, or do there seem to be controls?
Well, there certainly are controls below the display, because again, this is like it's funny because I think this is kind of like, so just a little bit of background. So the original idea for Star Trek was that the Enterprise was going to have holographic displays. Gene Roddenberry's original idea was that the control panel, so you'd have a control panel, but the display would like float in the air, which obviously they didn't have the technology to do at the time. So this is kind of, I guess this is a bit of a nod to that. So yes, basically there is a control panel below this display. And as I say, it looks as if this is what's controlling the energy beams, which is assaulting the two ships at the moment.
Can I make any sense of these controls?
Well, why don't we get the engineer over to have a look? He's our tech guy, so I guess you can have a look at it. So, all right, Kevin. So I guess what you're going to have to do.
Yep.
Let's have a little look. So what have we got that would be, I suppose, probably... I reckon... Why don't we have a go initially with, you've got mechanical engineering. It's not very high level, but you've got as I say, with FASA, the thing to remember is that if you have a score of like 27 or 30, it doesn't mean that you're crap at it. It just means that that's what they call like proficient. So anything up to like 40 is, if your day-to-day job is running a computer, then that means you can run a computer quite efficiently. You only have to roll against that number if you're doing something that's outside of the norm.
Well, I got a 9 anyway.
In what? Oh, you got a 9. Okay, well that's fine. So you managed to look at you look at this, and you spend a few minutes studying it, and but you think you've got the gist of it. So you basically throw a couple of toggles on this display, and sure enough, on this display, the two energy beams cease. They just stop, and almost simultaneously, your Captain Moore, your communicator beeps at you.
Okay.
Okay. So if you answer your communicator, it's So this is what's her name? It's T'Pren. So T'Pren is she's the science officer who's outside, and she says, "Captain, I need to report that the twin energy beams appear to have ceased. I have managed to re-establish contact with Lexington. They are carrying out repairs and are moving to a stable orbit. Additionally, a Klingon vessel, which was also held in orbit, has made contact, and they are also initiating repairs and are awaiting further contact from their landing party."
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, stay at the ready.
Cool.
Okay, I'm wondering if there's anything in this chamber that can stop the trance on the people that are here, because obviously we want to bug out, but we need to retrieve our crew members, right? Or do we just beam them up?
That's a good shout. So you can certainly have a look around. What you could do actually is maybe get what we'll do is we'll get Alex's character to come in, and given that he's a medic, see if he can make any sense out of any of the it's Jitan, yeah, so it's Lieutenant Commander Jitan. So you can call him on your communicator and get him to come in, and you can set him to work looking at any of the consoles to see if there seems to be anything that's displaying, anatomy that might indicate that it's controlling the other crew members.
Yeah.
Again, given that this room is it's large, he can go off and do that while you're dealing with the other situation.
I think a theory that was proposed was that the two Starfleet officers that we've come to retrieve, they were probably under influence to have committed the crime in the first place.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think that's certainly been borne out by what you've seen. They seem to be under some sort of compulsion.
Yep.
To carry out these actions. It doesn't seem as if they're acting under their own, and again, they seem to be almost oblivious to their, to what they're doing and where they are.
And I think just removing them from the situation isn't going to change that. So I feel like we need to find what's controlling them, and there's a good chance that that's going to be located here.
I think that's a very good suggestion. Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
So Jitan comes in and he kind of, looks at the room and goes, "Whoa." Because it is quite an impressive space, especially now that it's all lit up. So he basically, you give him instructions and he sets to work looking at the panels to see if he can find anything out to help. So meanwhile, as I say, you've managed to turn off the energy beam, which is affecting the two ships. Now, as I say, you're looking around, and suddenly, as you're waiting for Jitan to report back, there's an explosion which seems to rock the whole building. So all of you are shaken to the, you're sort of shaken to the ground as this explosion rocks through this building. So again, your communicator, goes off, and obviously unnecessarily, the Vulcan says, "Captain, there appears to have been some form of explosion within the structure. Are you harmed?" You're all okay. You're kind of, dust, there's lots of dust about, and you're all kind of coughing and spluttering a bit. But you all seem to be uninjured.
Sorry, he said it came from within the structure.
Yeah, so it seems as if this explosion has come from somewhere within the building.
Okay.
Suddenly, as this explosion, as your communicator beeps and you've spoken and she's reported in. She's reported in. All of the displays suddenly go off. So again, the room is not thrown into darkness because the lights are still on, but all of the holographic displays all suddenly cut out. And then one final display appears, or one display appears, and again it's projecting what looks to be, or what you recognize again as a representation of the Bacchus system. It shows the planet you are on, and as you watch, this shows beams of energy shooting out from this planet and seemingly destroying all of the other planets in the system. And this graphic repeats, so it runs through this program, and then it repeats. And as you're watching it and you're all kind of trying to take this in, a voice is broadcast through the entire room. It says, "Your access of our technology has put you in great danger. This system will be destroyed. Use the teleportation field to return to your vessel and leave the star system immediately. Attention, your access of our technology has put you in grave danger." And this message begins to repeat.
Okay.
And as you are kind of taking that in, you can hear almost like a very subtle hum in the background begins to get slightly louder.
It's a
We are
bluff.
leaving.
And your communicator at that point your communicator beeps again, and it's to Pren from outside of the structure, and she reports in. She says, "Captain, I have been contacted by the Lexington. I need to advise you that energy levels within the structure appear to be building to a catastrophic level. It is recommended that we vacate the area immediately. Lexington is standing by to transport us up. However, they cannot lock onto you whilst you are inside the structure. So I recommend that you exit the building with immediate haste."
Can you to contact the Lexington, can you connect to the computer here?
What you want the Lexington to? Well, the Lexington can't connect to the computer because it can't get any sort of signal through the structure.
But it can talk to us, can't it, through the?
Well, basically, you're talking to no, because they've contacted her because she's outside of the building, so she has communication with you because you're shorter range, but they can't get they can't pick up your so they can't lock onto you with the transporter, and they also can't communicate with you from inside.
So we have 2 tricorders. So can I jury rig the 2 tricorders so that we could have a tricorder inside the structure, and then short range contacts? Yeah. So put my communicator on the tricorder inside the structure, using the medical tricorder just outside the structure with another communicator attached to it, therefore creating a shortwave link, and use that. Because we can still get transported up with using somebody else's communicator, but use that as a way to link to the system.
I mean, you can do, yeah. So you're talking about setting up a relay system, right? So
essentially, so I know the tricorder should have enough energy and power to allow us to attempt to either draw as much data as we can from the computers, or connect to the computer and shut it down, or do whatever we can, but at a distance.
The only problem you've got is that now that these screens have all shut down, you don't really have any. You can't make a connection with this computer at all. So all you've got really is the information that you recorded on you, because luckily you were scanning that display. But now that everything else seems to be inert, so even if you try and get your tricorder to initiate a contact, there's just nothing for it to pick up. It seems to have been shut down entirely.
Right.
As you are processing that, so the Klingons are kind of looking now. The Klingons are saying, we need to leave this place immediately, and they rush over to their 2 colleagues, the 2 Klingons who they've come to get. Now these other individuals are all now looking very confused. Now that the systems have all shut down again, they've gone back to their kind of passive state of being, kind of milling about, uncertain what to do. So the 3 Klingons literally run across to their crewmates, and they basically physically kind of start manhandling them out of. They're going to start manhandling them out of the room. They don't seem to be bothered about the rest of them. They're just literally grabbing their 2 guys, and obviously their aim is to make for the exit.
May I suggest we do the same with ours?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Sure, yeah.
I think we've got to take everyone.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And you probably have to. Again, you don't really need to. All you need to do is sort of cajole them, because again they're now kind of bumping about. Without, it's almost as if their programming has been their communication has been shut off with whatever's guiding them. And in fact, as you approach your guys, they seem to almost be coming back to their senses a little bit.
Okay.
So your 2 officers, who are, just to remind myself, are Lieutenant Jenna Fry. So she's the I think she's the science, the one in blue. She's again sort of looking around, and as whoever approaches her, she's I'm assuming Captain Moore. So let's say you approach her, again with the aim of moving them out of the room, and she's, Captain. She looks at your rank and says, Captain, where are we? What's going on? What are we doing here?
We'll explain later. For now, we need to leave.
Yes, ma'am. Whatever you say. And the others similarly can be herded up. You can again guide them, and all the while you can hear this kind of underlying hum in the background. It's just very slightly getting louder and louder. That automated message is still playing. And as you cross the threshold, so the Klingons head out of the room first of all, and as they cross the threshold, they're enveloped in what looks like a red beam, and they just disappear. And before you have a chance to react, you feel that same sensation that you felt before on the bridge of the Lexington, and you disappear. Anyway, see you next week.
Right, time to roll up new characters then.
That would be awesome, wouldn't it? Right. So as your senses return, so your senses begin to return as you following the transport. But as your sort of conscious, your awareness comes back, you notice that you seem to be on the bridge of a small craft. The first sense that you get is the air is very stale and it smells very Klingon. And as your eyesight begins to focus, you see a dozen Klingons on this bridge, all sort of swing around almost at the same time and in complete surprise. And before you can react, several disruptor pistols have been pulled, and a fairly large, in stature Klingon pushes his way through this group and says, "What is the meaning of this intrusion?" And you realise that you seem to have been returned to the bridge of the Klingon bird of prey that you had, that is also in orbit of the planet, and you suspect it may be because the Klingons had exited the room first that the transport device had returned them to point of origin, and it's basically dropped you all back at the same place.
That's the case.
Right.
So you're all standing in the middle of this Klingon bridge, surrounded by Klingons with disruptors pulled and aiming at you.
Yeah, I'm happy to roll up new characters then.
Yeah.
That's the spirit. That's the old school spirit that we like.
It's TPK we've had in Star Trek.
I hate to disappoint you, but the three Klingons who you had who had been on the surface with you, which again, if we recall, I have to look up their name. So Qatar is the sergeant. So Sergeant Qatar, pushes his way through you, and Captain, stand down. These Federation are honourable. They helped us on the planet's surface, and we have retrieved our crewmen as ordered. And he kind of, again, his two subordinates kind of push the other two Klingons out in front of them, as if to prove that they've carried out their orders. He says, I suggest that we negotiate with these humans rather than eliminate them. If you'd like to scan the orbital path, you will see that there is indeed a Federation battlecruiser in orbit. It may be unwise to provoke them. So the captain, who's Captain, what's his name? Captain Parak. He kind of he gestures to one of his subordinates who obviously activates a sensor, the sensors, and he kind of scans and turns around white-faced, sort of nods rapidly. Certainly, this is an old model bird of prey, and this is certainly no match for the Lexington. So he says, "Very well. Take these Patach to the brig. I will deal with them later." And he gestures at the two Klingons who they've returned, and he orders them to be taken. He says, "What is your name, human?" And he approaches you, Captain Moore, obviously recognizes your rank.
Yeah, I'll give rank and file as an officer would.
Okay. What is the meaning of this? What is it that has caused this disruption?
We do not know. I assure you, we have no desire to be aboard your ship. And if you could just return us to our ship, we will be on our way, and we'll let you do the same.
Very well. One moment. His engineer, at this point, one of the Klingons on the bridge comes over to the captain and sort of he kind of speaks to him quietly. He says, "We appear to have a situation. One moment. I'm unable to transport you back to your vessel. Apparently, our warp core is in an overload process. Do you have any of your crew members from the engineering discipline? Our own chief engineer was killed during the initial energy surge."
No, sorry. Maybe we could borrow a shuttle and just fly out.
Well, that's hardly in the spirit of Klingon Federation relations.
I said that in my head.
Okay. So Captain Moore says, "Yes, indeed, we do. Well, luckily for you, we do have an engineer." Verrett, step forward, man.
We'll just eject the core. That makes sense. Sorry, wrong character. Wrong character. Sorry. I'm going to be very helpful.
Actually, you jest, but that's probably, in fact, what you go over to their control panel now. Again, can do, you can probably get Huerta to help you because, as we said earlier, I don't think Verret has got Klingon. Let me just double check. No, so you don't speak Klingon.
No.
But you can get Huerta to help you because Huerta does speak Klingon relatively and can
She's
read
more important in
Klingon.
this situation.
So Huerta, you go and look at over to the engineering panel. So
I'll go,
whilst the rest of you,
come over here.
yeah, while the rest of you are kind of having a bit of a nose at the Klingon bridge, bearing in mind that probably no one from Starfleet has actually been on a Klingon bird of prey's bridge before. So you're probably all kind of having a little discreet little nosy about. And
Obviously, I've got my
you-
tricorder on recording everything so we can take it
No,
back
that's fair. No, that's fair. Yes, I would assume you would have. So you look at the engineering console, and you can see that yes, they are in some real trouble here. Basically, it seems as if the energy beam that had affected their systems now, because basically Klingon systems are pretty primitive compared to Federation technology. So it seems as if the warp core has been the cooling system has been damaged by the orange beam, and now that it's
eject.
Yeah, exactly. So now that it's been shut down, the warp core seems to be building to an overload. And as you say, yes, your first reaction, you sort of advise the captain and say, "Well, Captain, we have no choice. We need to. If you're to escape the orbit of this planet, then we need to eject the warp core immediately." And he looks at his junior engineer, who's kind of looking very worried by the responsibility, knowing that he could very well be, disintegrated if he gets it wrong. He sort of nods. He says, "I concur, Captain. Yes, we need to eject the core immediately." He says, "Very well, man. What are you waiting for? Do it." So he leans across to his panel and pushes a few buttons, and there's like a. And as he steps back and says, "Oh, unable to eject the core, Captain. It seems as if the locks are frozen in place. I'm trying the override," and he tries again. And after a few attempts, it seems clear that the warp core is not going anywhere.
Captain, no. Inform the Klingon captain that we may have to evacuate the entire ship.
Yeah, the good news is I think these Bird of Prey only has a crew of about. So the one from Star Trek 3 had a crew of about, was it about 30 something, Mike? Is that right?
It was 12.
20 odd.
12
I can't remember exactly, but it's, oh, hang on,
Dave.
Hold on.
Do they have a shuttle?
Yes, they do indeed have a shuttle. However, what you can do is you could probably contact the Lexington at this point. Now that you're away from the planet's influence, you could certainly contact the Lexington directly, I would imagine, if one of you wants to do that.
Could the Lexington tow the Klingon vessel away, or is it just too slow?
Yeah, actually, Mike's right. Yeah, so a Bird of Prey only has a crew of about 12. So yes, you could. Yes, to be honest, it would probably be too slow because if this system is going to go up, you probably want to go to warp speed rather than mess about with towing them, because you'd only be able to tow them at sublight speed. Yeah. So probably your only options really are, as you say, you could. They do have a shuttle, but to be honest, as there's so few of you on board, what you could do is you could match orbits with the Lexington and just literally get the Lexington to beam you all over. Because if all Lexington's got like 4 transporter rooms, so if they all just operated in tandem, they could beam all of you out in one go, and that includes all of the Klingon crew as well as the the other guys as well.
Yeah, I think that's the better option. I'd run that by the Klingon captain. Obviously, I don't want to just beam.
It is dishonorable. It would be dishonorable for me to abandon my ship in such a manner.
Right here, then.
Okay, and how about you? Yeah.
Well,
the option's yours, Captain.
Captain, we could sedate you and take you over the other ship. Then you have not abandoned. You have been removed from your ship. If that
but the trouble is with that, Kevin, is he'll probably want to kill you afterwards for honour's sake.
Yeah. Oh, we'll
by the
take
way,
everyone but you then, mate.
if you look in the general chat, I've just put in a picture of this is the original. This is like an original series Bird of Prey, so it's not the same as the one from the movie, but it's that's what I'm going with as the ship that you're on. I mean, okay, so as he is, so obviously as this conversation is going on, so he initially is resistant because again, he's reluctant to abandon his ship. Having said that, Captain Moore, your communicator goes off again as you're debating this with him, and it's the Lexington. And they say, Captain, we need to get you out of there urgently. The energy buildup in that structure is reaching critical mass. I don't know what's going to happen, but I suspect we don't want to be here when it goes off.
All right, anyone wants to live? Come with us
if you
now.
want to live.
Yeah. Prepare to beam aboard, and then I'll look to the Klingon captain. How many shall I say to beam aboard?
Very well. He says, one moment, I'll have all crew report to the bridge. So he sends out, he says, urgent, all crew, stand by to abandon ship, report to the bridge immediately. And within a minute or so, the remaining Klingons on board kind of cram into the bridge. And as you watch, they begin to be transported out as the Lexington is taking them out in groups of 6. Again, the Lexington's got 4 transport rooms. So all 4 are operating in tandem. So they essentially get you all out in one go, but you see them go first, and then some of the other guys from the surface are all being down. And within moments, you materialise on board.
I'm going to leave my
Lexington.
leave my tricorder so that when I get back, I'm going to attempt to steal the cloaking technology.
Okay. Right, so you all materialise
Changing
back
the Federation
on the
timeline forever.
Say
Yep.
again?
Changing the Federation timeline forever.
Not if I can help it. Give me a minute. Okay, so you you materialise on board the Lexington, and in a dramatic manner, you all kind of head off at a run for the bridge. So you kind of run out of the. Obviously, as you're passing the other transport rooms, you see security, Starfleet security have, shall we say, escorting the Klingons to guest quarters. They're keeping them all together, and they're going to escort them
with the force fields on the doors.
They might be. They're escorting them to guest quarters. I mean, you presumably will. Again, you don't have time to deal with the niceties of this at the moment. So basically, they go. You go charging off down the corridor, get into the turbo lift, and as you reach the bridge, you come onto the bridge, and captain on the bridge. And you all kind of run across to your normal duty stations. Commander Reiter, you take the helm from an Andorian who steps aside, nods at you, and you take the helm. And the rest of you all settle down to your positions. And as you're on the viewer, you can see Bacchus 4. And as you watch, you see almost like the atmosphere seems to be almost glowing, and energy beams begin to strike out from the planet's surface. The viewer has to dial its filters down to cope with the overload of light. And at that point, you probably want to get the hell out of Dodge, I would imagine.
Uh-huh.
So you order you order Commander Reiter to set to basically escape course, warp 1 now, and the ship pulls away from the planet and breaks off into warp speed. And as you're watching on the viewer, there's a vast explosion, and it literally appears as if you're watching this star system break apart in front of your eyes. And everybody on the bridge who's got visibility of this is obviously kind of awed into silence, because this represents technology that you've never encountered before on this scale.
It's a planet killer.
It is indeed a planet killer. And sure enough, as your science officer, who I should mention was also retrieved, she wasn't left on the planet. Because has anybody seen the Vulcan? Nuts. So she's in it, looking into her hooded viewer, and she concurs. She's Captain, the system is literally, the planets in the system are breaking apart. I've never seen destruction on this scale. The amount of energy involved is horrifying. And again, the Lexington is kind of shooting away at warp speed. And obviously the Klingon bird of prey has been destroyed in the conflagration. But again, after a brief period of time, the ship can come, you can sort of slow down from warp speed to gather your thoughts at a safe distance. But yeah, obviously your sensors recorded a lot of this. And again, this is kind of power on a scale that again, you mentioned the planet killer. Again, the planet killer, which was encountered by the USS Enterprise, had vast power, but this demonstration of power is something you've never seen before.
Star
What
Killer.
actually happened?
Yeah, there you go. One could call it a Star Killer base.
Steve, what actually
there's a
happened?
thought.
Did the planet explode? Did it send energy waves out? Did it just...
Right. So if you review the sense, so basically, once the ship comes, you drop out of warp again, because obviously you've gone dashing out of the system, and again you're at a safe distance now. So you're kind of reviewing sensor information, and obviously you've got all of your sensors are watching this happen. So what seemed to happen is that the energy beams basically came out from that structure that you were in, and literally began to systematically carve up all the other planets in the system. So where things are at the moment is that all of the planetary bodies in the system have now been destroyed. That literally all it is a massive rubble, including Bacchus 4. So once the beams had done their work on the other planets in the system, then that Bacchus 4 also then destroyed, essentially exploded. And as you say, at the moment that system is a mess of debris and radiation, and obviously the star is still there. But this thing literally carved up a solar system within minutes. So again, the implications of that kind of technology and power are horrifying, honestly. And as I say, you're all kind of trying to process this. Again, rumors abound throughout the ship's company. Again, only those of you who were on the planet and were on the bridge at the time have had direct exposure. But of course, there are people in the science departments who've been monitoring this. And yeah, there is definitely a hush has fallen over the Lexington at this point. So, is there anything before we move on? Is there anything you want to do? Again, at this point, you are you're holding position, a few light years or a light year away from your last position, just monitoring this and again taking readings and recording what's going on.
Protocol will be that we contact or send a message to Starfleet.
Yes, indeed.
I'm wondering whether we offer that as an option for Klingons, the Klingons to be able to send a message to their head office, their command structure to do the same thing. It's just a pure courtesy.
Yeah.
Well,
and also we want to get out one of our coffins and do some kind of ceremonial thing to put their dead body in.
Does anybody have any bagpipes? I'm just asking.
No.
Okay. Right. As you are so again, you're making arrangements, but as you're making arrangements, the communications officer swings in her chair. She says, "Captain, I'm receiving a transmission. It's Admiral Stoker."
Who's do I know?
Admiral Stoker. Yeah, is Admiral Stoker? I think
version of Commodore Stoker. Is it Stoker or Stoker? Right. Okay.
No, this is not Stoker. This is Admiral Stoker. So you've heard of her
on the USS Whitby.
She's
okay, heard of, but I'm not sort of in current communication with.
He says no, exactly. So he says she requests to speak to you on a private channel, sir.
Okay.
So what you would normally do is probably go to your quarters and
yeah.
You don't have a ready room, I don't think, on the Constitution class. So
no, that's fine. Yeah, I'll take it in my quarters then. So
okay. So you stride off the bridge, head down on the turbo lift, get to your quarters, and as you're there, there's your communications terminal is beeping, so you activate it. So on the screen, a kind of she's like a middle-aged female admiral, and she says, "Captain Moore."
Admiral.
what is your? I understand you're holding position currently about a light year outside of the Bacchus system. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Very well. Your orders are to meet me at these coordinates. I'm my ship. My ship and I will meet you in 4 hours at these coordinates, and she sends you through some coordinates. She says, please acknowledge receipt of the coordinates, and you can do that because you've had them come through. And she says, we'll talk in person. I require a full report from yourself and your senior officers. Do not discuss the events on Bacchus 4 with anyone else under your command until we've had an opportunity to talk. Is that understood?
Understood, Admiral. May I also advise we have aboard some guests?
Guests? What guests?
Yes. We have some Klingon. We have some Romulan.
Not the Romulan. She got zapped.
Oh, was there anyone? I thought there were two Romulan.
There were
no, there's only one. No, there's only one.
Okay.
You've got a Vulcan, two Trill,
yeah.
two Klingons, and you've got the two humans as well.
Well, we've got five. No, how many? No, we've got tons of Klingon.
You got a full set. You got a full set. Yeah.
You
got about 17.
Collection.
You got about 12, 14 Klingons you've got on board.
There's that many. There's Klingons on the starboard bow.
There is, and on the port bow probably as well. She says, well, that is an unexpected complication, but very well. We'll speak in person in 4 hours. Stoker out. And she sort of cuts the connection. A bit rude, you thought, but a bit rude. But what are you going to do? She outranks you, so what are you going to do? Right, so you go back to the bridge, to be honest, you can call the bridge, and you order Commander. You order Valdemar to set course for the coordinates given.
Is it a 4-hour trip?
Yeah, if you proceed,
we can't delay. We've got to just head straight for it.
If you head at cruising speed, it will take you 4 hours to get there. Yeah, it's not.
Okay,
it's not. It's a few light years away, but in Star Trek terms, it's not too far. But interestingly, if you choose to investigate the coordinates any closer, you do note that they are essentially in interstellar space, so they're like in middle of nowhere.
Okay, cool.
So she's not rendezvousing with you at a system. She's literally meeting you in the middle of nowhere. So okay, fine. So you give those orders, and sure enough, the Lexington warps away. And again, you can all do whatever you wish to do within those 4 hours. Has anybody got anything in particular they want to be doing? I presume you probably all want a bit of rest, maybe something to eat, a bit of maybe a shower and all that. A kind of.
Yeah. Yes. Run the imagery that I downloaded for Tricorder through the system.
Right. So yes. Thanks for reminding me. So you do that. So you, as you say, you'd luckily thought to run your tricorder on like capture mode, and it had captured a pretty good representation of that holographic map that you saw. And you seemed, looking at the star positions, because by comparing it with the Lexington star charts in stellar cartography, which back in those days is a much clunkier looking room than it is in the next generation. So it's just another room with loads of big chunky buttons and so on. But as you run it through the computers, yes, you can see that system is that representation of the galaxy is actually current time. So it's not historic; it's actually real time. And again, by looking at the plot, you confirm what you saw before, that the biggest concentration of the red dots was in this area in the beta quadrant. That again, you're not from, as far as you know, it's unexplored. It kind of borders on Klingon and Romulan territory. But again, the computer's going to take a while to process it all through. But you can certainly be sure that information is contemporary. It's current. It's not historical.
Okay.
Cool. Anyway, so is there anything else anybody else in particular wants to do before we proceed?
Well, how far are we away from that particular system? Is it possible to send a long range? So what they call?
Oh no, you're way away from the Shackleton. Because again, this is what will be the Shackleton Expanse in the future. But at the moment, you're in Alpha Quadrant. But yeah, I mean, it's weeks away at warp. Warp 8 or whatever. So yes, it's a hell of a distance away. Having said that, again, that the map does, again, the Bacchus system was represented. There's some other systems that you're not familiar with. Again, you can sort of, the computer's running a collation, but it's going to take a while because again, there's a lot of information for it to process through. But thank goodness that you recorded it, because all the other computer stuff's all been wiped out. So
Upload the imagery to the to send it to Starfleet as a new star maps.
Okay, yeah,
I
you
imagine
can do
that's
that.
protocol.
Yeah, quite right. So yes, if you've done any sort of star mapping, exactly right. Right. Okay. So after 4 hours, again, assuming you've all had a bit of a chance to have a bit of a break and something to eat and a shower and a fresh uniform and so on, the Lexington emerges from warp, and on the view screen ahead at the appointed coordinates, there is another Constitution class vessel. Your IFF system reports to you that it is the USS Astrad, one of the newer Constitution class ships. So not one of the original 13, but one of the newer ones. And as you sort of pull up alongside, you have orders relayed from the transporter room to report that Admiral Stoker has beamed aboard, and she's expecting you to, Captain Moore, to go meet her in the transporter room.
Yeah, I'll make my way there.
Okay, so you proceed down, and again, you enter the transport room. So this Admiral Stoker, she's as I say, she's a middle-aged woman. She's obviously in good shape, and she looks quite stern, blonde-haired, wearing obviously the Admiral's uniform, which at this point is essentially that's the gold with the sort of starburst insignia on it. And she says, "Captain, we need to speak somewhere in private. Can we make use of one of your briefing rooms, please?"
Of course.
Yeah. So you lead her up into the upper levels of the saucer section to one of the main briefing rooms, and as you enter the room, she says, "Computer, activate privacy mode," and the computer says, "Working," and then the door, you can hear the door sort of thunk as it locks, and obviously you know that privacy mode means that the room is now sealed from any scanning devices or any external transmissions.
So do you want I want to sort of drop out of Discord to do it?
You're okay.
No.
That's taking simulation a bit too far, but no, you're okay. So basically, she says, "Captain, sit," and she basically asks you to give her a full report on everything that's happened. So, I presume you'll just relate what as you know the events.
Yeah, I won't withhold anything.
Okay, so you run through it all. So you explain to her that you entered the system, that the ship was captured by the orange beams, and that you were transported against your will down to the planet's surface. That you entered the obelisk or monolith, whatever you want to call it, and that the devices were all activated by these people who seem to be under some sort of control. And then obviously, once you'd interacted with the equipment, you received that warning, and then the planetary system was destroyed. You also relate the events that led to having the Klingons on board, at which she sort of looks a bit annoyed about that. But she lets you finish, and she says, "Very well, Captain. Thank you for the detailed report. The situation is that some of this information that you've relayed is familiar to Starfleet Command. I can say no more, given that it is classified at the highest possible clearance level. Your orders are that all materials relating to your experience on Bacchus 4, so that would include all ship sensor logs, data from any of your tricorders, is to be transferred to the Astrad immediately. These will be placed under secure computer lock, and they will be analysed by Starfleet Command at the highest level. Additionally, I require that your crew will be ordered to not discuss the events that occurred on Bacchus 4 with anybody. That includes family, that includes friends, anybody. Is that understood?
Understood.
Any breach of this guidance will result, unfortunately, in your crew being, at the very least, dishonorably discharged from Starfleet. Rest assured, Captain, that I would not ask you to take these measures unless it was absolutely essential. Believe me when I say that the very security of the Federation is at stake here. and I rely upon your discretion and your absolute cooperation.
I understand.
As far as the Klingons go, what is your recommendation?
Well, I was going to return them to a location that they chose, but now understanding the sensitivity of the information we have, would you like them to be transported
malfunction.
aboard your ship?
Cue the scene from Star Trek: The Motion Picture. The Klingons do present a problem. Obviously, relations between Starfleet and the Klingon Empire currently are, shall we say, cordial, or at least conciliatory, if not friendly. Given the sensitivity of the information that they may be privy to, however, I am put at something of a disadvantage. Having said that, I do not feel that we can detain the Klingons any longer than is absolutely necessary.
Understood.
I will transfer them to the Astrad. Starbase K7 is 2 days travel away, and is on our course back to our next posting. So we will treat them as guests, and we will have them deposited at K7, and from there they can make arrangements to be returned to the Empire. Obviously, any record of them having been on board the Lexington is also to be expunged from your computer records. And again, I would ask you to have conversations with your senior officers to enforce upon them the importance of this information being kept from the general populace. Rest assured that things will soon become clearer, I'm sure. However, for now, we have no choice but to act to try and keep this information from getting further.
Understood. I will hold a briefing as ASAP. Secondly, the two retrieved crew members, Fry and I can't remember the name of the other one.
Yeah, that's fine. Fry and carry on.
Do you have any further orders for them? Would you like us to see what they remember?
They will be transferred. I will transfer them and the other returnees to the Astrad as well. The two Starfleet officers will be handed over to the Judge Advocate General's office. They have charges to answer. Further investigation has revealed that the death of the two Starfleet personnel that occurred during the theft of the shuttle was in fact accidental. However, they do have charges to answer, and so we will pass this over to the Judge Advocate General's office, and they will act accordingly. I gather from your conversations and from your initial discussions with these personnel that they seem to not remember anything of their experiences. They seem to be unaware that they were coerced into these actions, and so for that reason they present less of a security risk. However, as I say, the two Starfleet personnel will be dealt with by the Judge Advocate General's office. Meanwhile, the Vulcan diplomat and the Trill civilians will be returned to their home planets as soon as is possible.
Okay, that's understood. That's all correct. I'd also like to put my name forward for giving witness for the wouldn't be a trial, would it? The court martial, the debriefing, the whatever of the two crew members.
Captain,
that is as testimony. I'd like to give my testimony.
That is considerate of you, and I will indeed pass that recommendation on to the Judge Advocate General's office on your behalf. Again, I thank you for your cooperation in this matter, Captain. I understand that events are concerning and that you have been through much that requires explanation. However, rest assured that Starfleet Command is investigating this at the highest level. With that, I will take my leave. Please arrange to have all materials transferred to the Astrad within the next 2 hours, and we will depart as soon as those materials and personnel are aboard. I will find my way back to the transporter room. Captain, you're dismissed. And she essentially says, "Oh, yeah, privacy mode, disengage," and the room opens, and she strides off out into the corridor.
Yeah, and I'll standard salute or whatever is appropriate.
They don't really do salutes, do they, Mike? Sort of, don't really do that sort of thing, but it's a fair point. Great. Okay, so she wanders off and assume so. Okay, so your orders are to turn over all this material to the ship, which. So I'll let you figure out how you want to handle that. Has anybody got anything they want to throw in at this point? But I mean, obviously you weren't in the room. However, obviously Captain Moore will then, I presume, will call a meeting.
I'll hold a briefing, of the senior staff, and then I'll put forward what needs to. Oh, sorry, I just got to go and grab my charge cable.
Yeah, no problem. So, what about the rest of you? Is there anything you'd like to throw in at this point? I'm sure, Kevin, you've got something to say on this.
Part of me wants to leave a record somewhere.
Okay. Well, I mean,
but
you can certainly do that. Again, I'm obviously. You've been ordered to hand over all information. However, if you were to, omit or forget that you'd made a backup of it, that's totally up to you.
Yeah.
You certainly have enough knowledge of the Lexington's computer systems that you could stash that away somewhere in a data bank where it wouldn't be found easily.
Essentially, create a USB drive with that data on.
Sure. No, in these days, it's a plastic, like a rectangular plastic coloured.
I believe it's wood.
Chit, basically, isn't it? Looks like a data cartridge. Yeah, made out of wood. Exactly. That's right. They were made out of wood and painted red or green or yellow or something. So you get one of those, and you put your data. Yeah, that's fine. You can back up the data, no problem. Again, I presume you'll expunge any record of it, just to make sure that it. But then you can stash that away. That's up to you entirely. So what about you, Commander Reitmer? Have you got anything you want to add at this point, or are you happy to hand over your to cooperate fully at this point?
I'm not happy about it. I'm never happy about keeping secrets like
because
this.
You're German, so you're never happy about anything. Oh, sorry, stereotype. That's bad of me.
For all our German listeners, apologies.
Yeah, for all our many German listeners out there, I can only apologise.
I believe there is only 9 of them.
Very good.
Now you've brought up the fact that I'm German, I'm deeply unhappy with the idea of just following orders.
Yeah, exactly. It's a tricky one. Yeah, I mean, her orders seem unusual, but bearing in mind this is again, we are playing. This is a different time, and I guess she seems to be from what you've had relayed to you. She seems to be relatively conciliatory in terms of the other personnel, but obviously is concerned about this data getting out. And again, I guess that's again, as we said, given what you saw with that planetary system being destroyed so easily, certainly is not something that you probably want people to be aware of. Certainly not at this point, anyway.
I would talk about it with the crew that were obviously there with me, and with whom it is permissible to talk about it.
Yeah.
Just to sort of talk out my concerns. I think I would feel uncomfortable with what's going to happen to the Klingons, because obviously we won't know.
That's a fair point, actually. That's a very fair point. I mean, again, I guess you could. I mean, obviously there are ways and means. There you go. I guess there are ways and means that you can follow up on that, because she's advised you that she's going to have Starfleet have the Klingons deposited at Space Station K7, which is basically the nearest starbase to the Klingon Empire, as seen in Trouble with Tribbles. So
it would be useful then actually to take a note of all their names, ranks, and whatnot, so that, and kind of keep that to one side, so that at some point in the future it might be worth just checking to see if they're still alive. Not that we're suspicious, totally, but if it turns out actually,
I mean, again,
Steve, I think what I will follow orders to the letter. But what I will do is I will allow the Klingons to contact whoever they need to, and I'll let these Klingons know where they are being escorted to, so that they can really relay that information. And then I will tell the Admiral exactly what's happened. I'll say the Klingons have contacted their people. They know they are on their way to the starbase, and therefore, it's all out in the open then.
That's perfectly acceptable.
Love that.
Yeah, so basically, exactly that then. So what you do is you send a message. So, or you gather Captain Panak, I think his name was, into you call him into the briefing room as you're getting them ready to be transferred over to the Astrad, and you say to him, Captain, it's been a pleasure to meet you. I hope we can. I hope this marks potentially better relations between our peoples in the future. Blah blah blah. And you give him that opportunity, and he looks at you with some surprise, because he was again, Klingons are a very military society, so they assumed that they were being held prisoner. But you give him every courtesy, and you offer him the option to contact his own people to arrange transfer before they go to the Astrad. So he does that, and sure enough, he acknowledges you with as much as he can, and sure enough, you have them. They get transported over to the Astrad, and you let Admiral Stoker know that you've done that, and she doesn't seem all that happy. However, she doesn't contradict you, and obviously at this point, you've already done it, so there isn't really much she can do about it. So she acknowledges, very well, Captain. Please complete transfer of all information as agreed, and we will depart within the hour. And she cuts the communication, and sure enough, within the hour, you've transferred all of the materials over, and the Klingon crew members and also the other guys have all been transferred over. And within the hour, the Astrad basically warps out of the system, and sure enough, it seems to be heading in the direction of K7. But again, you've obviously put in a little bit of a security blanket there, just in case. So if they were to mysteriously disappear, it would be harder to explain. So I think that's a great little precaution to take. So yeah, that's excellent. Okay, so basically, once all of that is done and everybody is transferred across, as I say, the Astrad heads off, and the Lexington is released back to normal operation. So we've actually managed to wrap that up a bit ahead of schedule there, guys, which is great. So that's the end of Bacchus's Irresistible Call Part 2. So we have another adventure next time, which will also be set in the same timeline, which I'm going to carry on with. So we're going to be carrying on with using the FASA system for next time.
It doesn't start with us finding the bodies of 15 Klingons, does it?
You've been reading my bloody notes, honestly. That's shocking. I mean, yeah, you could do. No, I think you're okay. I think the captain's actions there have probably. Well, I'm not going to say what her intentions were. There's Space Station K7, by the way, in Discord. So yeah, I mean, certainly it's made it. Let's say it's made it more difficult for them to disappear without trace. Let's put it that way. So basically, yeah, you go back to your normal duties, and essentially you go back as if nothing's happened. And again, all information's been taken away by the Astrad, and as I say, that's kind of where we wrap it up for tonight. So has anybody got anything they'd like to add, or any questions, or anything they'd like to say before we finish for the evening?
Cheers, Steve. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah.
I like the slightly different system. I did something similar with D&D when I...
Oh yeah, do tell, please.
When I was jumping between the different realms, I wanted them to seem different, so I used different systems for it, and I thought it added a nice touch. And having this set back in time with a different system gives that slightly different feel to it, which is nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, as I say, I mentioned it last time, but the intention is, so the reason I'm doing this is purely because this campaign as a whole is a 10-part campaign, but obviously when we started this game back in 2017, we started off using what they called the living campaign, but then when they brought out the Shackleton Expanse book, what they did was they condensed that into a 10-part campaign, which had many of the adventures that we've played are what they call mission briefs, where they've kind of slotted them in, but essentially the core of the story is a 10-part campaign. Now, of course, the first 2 parts of that campaign are set in the original series era, and of course, because we were on the Vigilant, we weren't going to experience those, and so this all came about because it seemed like a shame that you didn't get to play the whole thing. So, as you say, the idea to run it with the FASA system was purely an attempt to, as you say, set it apart from what we do normally, and just give it a different feel, different flavour, emphasise that this is, a different time, and different characters. So yeah, no, I'm happy with it. Again, I Mike and I have used the FASA system many times, and in some ways it's a lot simpler than Star Trek Adventures. But yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad, and again, I'm really happy with how we're doing with it, and I'm really happy that you'll get to play the whole campaign, albeit in a kind of a slightly weird order. But the point is, you'll have done all 10 parts by the end of it, which means that we've played the whole thing. So yeah, that's my intention. So the next time, I think it's going to be probably a 1-session adventure, because it's a mission brief, and then there's another scenario, which again I'll probably be a 2-parter, I would imagine, and then after that we'll then be reverting back to the Vigilant main timeline, at which point we'll be into the last 2 parts of the campaign. So yeah, we're doing it, so it's all good. And thanks again, as always, for your sticking with it, and I really appreciate your excellent role playing, your excellent ideas, and yeah, it's great. I thoroughly enjoyed it tonight, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Starship Vigilant. Kaz was played by Mike. David Osterhagen was played by Kevin. Kolish was played by Kerin. Our music is Fanfare for Space by Kevin MacLeod, which is licensed under a Creative Commons license. See you next time.